Hey, I'm Andrew Morgan, and I approve this message.
Hello everyone, I'm Steve Hartline, and welcome to our latest edition of our Mixed TV Candidate Spotlights. Today, we are joined by Andrew Morgan. Well, Andrew, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, Steve, I'm doing great. It's always a beautiful day in Bradley County.
It sure is. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And, you know, these candidate spotlights are all about learning about the candidates and getting to know them. So let's get to know you a little bit. Just tell us about your background and your growing up time.
Oh, certainly. You know, I grew up here in Bradley County. Grew up on a dairy farm up in Shady Valley, basically, up almost to Polk County. My dad was a dairy farmer. Mom, actually, her and my grandparents owned Bradley Interiors here in town. So, you know, both of them self-employed my whole life. So, you know, that's what I grew up knowing. I didn't ever have parents that really worked for someone else. My dad drove a truck for a little bit when I was a small child, but self-employment is what I've always known. Went to Michigan Avenue, Bradley Junior, then Bradley Central. Got a dual enrollment and got my degree from Cleveland State. Then went off to UT. Finished up there, came back here, sold insurance for a year, ran actually as a state representative candidate back in '04 in the primary. Did pretty well for 21, but then decided to go back to law school. Went to law school, got out, and I've been back here for almost 15 years, practicing law ever since. So that's basically how we got here. But yeah, Bradley County born and raised.
Let me ask you this, why the law? What appealed to you about the law?
Well, Steve, I've always really had a passion to find the truth, for one. It's something that matters to me. I'll argue till I'm blue in the face if I don't think the truth is coming out. Number two, I've always taken up for the little guy. I've always wanted to fight for somebody who's not being represented appropriately, not somebody who's not being heard. So that's, I think, what really pushed me and gave me a desire to go into law school. It gave me a platform to be able to advocate for people and advocate for ideas. So that's pretty much what got me there.
Let's go back to that dairy farm.
Oh, yeah.
What did you learn on the farm?
Oh, my goodness.
That you've taken?
You know, it's one of those things that people have this conception of what farm life is. And, you know, it's not the stuff you see at Hobby Lobby that you hang on the wall in the kitchen. It's hard work. You know, it's one of those things of the animals eat first. You know, it's one of those that you're the vet, you're the mechanic, you handle every job that comes up. And growing up, you know, my mom always knew that my dad's schedule was very, very fluid. If he's not home and it's noon, he's probably had a cow down, he probably had a cow get out, he probably had a tractor that messed up. You know, I don't know how many nights that we'd be out at 1 in the morning, even when I was, you know, in school, you know, trying to get a cow that might have gotten out in a storm, or a cow that was having a calf and was having some trouble. So it's one of those things that you quickly realize that I don't matter nearly as much as what has to be done. And so what I mean by that is you sacrifice yourself to make sure that the responsibilities that you have are met. And that's basically that's what I learned at a young age, and that's pretty much how I've treated my life, is to try to look out for other people first and foremost, because that's really where I think that we as a human race need to be, is we need to be concerned about the next person down the line. We need to be concerned about the things that we need to handle. So those are some of the things, the hard work, the desire for efficiency. Those are some of the things that I got from the farm life. But mostly, and not to toot my own horn, but the selflessness that I've tried to display my whole career really started out there.
Who do you admire? If I ask you that question, sure. You know, who do you admire?
Well, I mean, obviously my parents. I mean, they're phenomenal people. But honestly, as far as if you took them off the plate, really anybody who works hard and sacrifices. I mean, that's who I'm drawn to. You know, I grew up being a fan of Michael Jordan. I mean, you know, Michael Jordan, Frank Thomas, Chipper Jones. But I always knew that those guys were athletes. They did this thing that I enjoyed watching, and that's really where it stopped. you know, from an academic standpoint, from a political standpoint, Thomas Jefferson, Ronald Reagan, those guys, you know, reading their works, reading their speeches, the things they said, the things they did, the history of it all, that appealed to me. And I think that factored in with the selfless side that I learned from my parents. That's what I've always, you know, been drawn to. The history, of course, is what I started out in college as a major and quickly shifted to political science for some unknown reason. But yeah, that's I think what I am drawn to.
Well, let's talk about your candidacy. First of all, you know, the judges' races on the ballot, on our ballot, there are 3. Tell me about your particular race and what you're running for.
Well, predominantly, it's mainly known for juvenile court, civil sessions court, which handle evictions, collections, small claims. It also handles pretty much everything juvenile. There's also mental health court, environmental court, and order protection court also in there as well. But that's right now under the agreement that's in place. That's pretty much what that court focuses on. So that's the one I'm running for.
Why are you running? Why do you want to do this?
Oh my goodness. You know, on the juvenile side, which is really where my heart is, you know, being able to pour into a child's life, being able to help a child that has maybe not had the best home life, maybe not had the best influences, helping that child see that there's another way that life can go for them and helping get them on that track is something I've always cared about. Being able to be a role model to some of these kids is something that has always appealed to me. But more so, being able to stand there and help facilitate a child's rehabilitation is just one of the best jobs that anyone could ever have. On the civil side of it, it's not as exciting. It's really just, you know, we need to make sure that people are properly are properly before the court. We need to make sure that people are properly served. We need to make sure that cases are heard, that due process happens. You know, we were talking earlier about, you know, CDC mandates and things of that sort. Due process was not followed for the longest time under that CDC mandate. Frankly, it wasn't appropriate. That's the kind of thing that this court needs to make sure that they follow. And so that's always been the nerdy side of me that wants to help make sure that the rule of law is followed. But at the end of the day, Steve, man, it comes down to helping kids. That is where my heart goes to.
Does that go back to when you said earlier, when you decided on the law, the little guy?
Oh, yeah.
The one that's...
It did, and, you know, it's one of those things of, you know, growing up on a farm, you see the little calf that isn't as big as the other ones, that needs a little bit of help, and, you know, you give it that extra bottle, you give it that little bit of extra attention, and, you know, you see it grow up and just, I know it's an analogy that a lot of people don't see, but, you know, being able to pour into some of these kids that maybe don't have a dad, or maybe they don't have the best home life, if we can keep them out of the adult court system, then we've succeeded. You know, and I really don't want to have that low of a bar, but that's a place to start. You know, if we can start there, and you know, graduation rates in Bradley County are in the 90s, which is phenomenal. But we don't need to stop there. And I know I'm not running for school board, so humor me for a minute. But if the court system can work in conjunction with the education system, and if the court system can work in conjunction with the sheriff's department, the police department, and with nonprofits, we can actually raise that bar and basically be looking here and saying that, you know, if we can help these kids, you know, be able to find a career, to find a job, there's so much we can do. And we can do this in a way that is still fiscally conservative, in a way that doesn't grow government, but do it in a way that's efficient and actually reduces the need for government in the future, because, you know, if you have a child that is now no longer going to be in the system, if you have them become productive, well, not only are they not occupying any space in the jail or in the criminal courts, they also are now possibly raising children who also may not be part of the system. So if we can pour in our blood, sweat, and tears now, then maybe, just maybe, we can turn some things around and help out, you know, for generations to come. Breaking those cycles is what I'm all about.
Give me two, maybe three things,
Sure.
if elected, what would be, let's say, your top few priorities?
Oh my goodness. Well, I definitely want to work with business leaders. I want to work with nonprofits to see how we can bring them in to the juvenile courts and to help have mentorship programs, to help single parents with housing. We, in my private capacity, have helped people get tied in with Habitat for Humanity and other 501c3s that do amazing work. I think that I, in my position, can help bring some of those together to help complete the puzzle. The government doesn't need to be the one doing all this, but we need to help put these people together. So that's one. Make it a more all-inclusive new approach to trying to help fix the overarching problem. Just like if you have a child who's truant. Well, why are they truant? Is it because mom doesn't have a way to get to the child to school? Well, let's talk about bus routes. Let's talk about SETHRA. Let's figure out what it is that we can help. Now, that's something that we need to take a look at. The other thing we have to do is we've got to get our dockets under control. And what I'd like to see happen is after we get the docket under control, I would also like to open up the court to divorce jurisdiction. We have it presently, but we just don't utilize it. If we could actually handle some more things, and I know people will call me crazy, but I know how much I handle now, and we can handle some more. We just got to work. If we work smarter and harder and more efficiently, we could actually do some divorces in my court and alleviate some of the load in Chancery Court and in Circuit Court, thus freeing some of those dockets up and having those cases move faster. And I think that the more efficiency we have, combined with having court more often, I think you're going to fix a lot of dockets, you're going to fix a lot of problems, and getting people into the court system faster to actually make sure that justice is speedy and that justice is fair. I think that's two of the first things I'm going to do.
Andrew, what I think I'm hearing you say is it's about the people that, if elected, would come before you.
Completely. The law is the law. It's black and white. It truly is. There's some things that the judge gets to decide based upon facts and factors. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the people. And especially when you're dealing with juveniles, you have to treat them as an individual person. And if we're trying to rehabilitate the child, then that's something that we need to get to know that child and what works. We need to get to know that family and what works. Juvenile court is not necessarily about punishment. It can be, and it should be used at the appropriate time. But we need to be able to focus on the individual, and we need to apply the facts of the case to the law. And it's just that black and white.
All right. Well, Andrew, I tell you, in the time we have left,
Sure.
Why don't you just speak directly to the voters?
Sure.
Thinking about what you've told us here today, and really why they should cast their ballot for you when it comes time to do that.
Certainly. Well, I guess I would say this. I was born and raised in Bradley County. I know Bradley County. It's a situation where we need somebody who can actually come and try to actually pour into our children and make sure that our children have a fair and fighting shot. If your child's actually before the court, you want to make sure that that child is treated with respect, treated decently, and that they get the help they need. Too often we have members of our own family that find themselves in the system. And when that happens, the thing I hear more often than anything is that they need to be treated correctly. That's what I intend to do. I want to treat everybody with respect. I want to treat everybody the same, and no one getting special treatment. At the same time, we need to treat everyone as if they are an individual, because that's what we all are. What works for some people doesn't work for others. And I think it's the job of the juvenile court judge to make sure that we are doing that we're treating everybody as individuals, and that we're pouring into these people on a way that actually works for them. So that's what you'll get from me. You won't find anyone who will work harder for you, anyone who will work with more compassion and care, and at the same point knows when to actually lay down the law when it needs to be laid down. So I look forward to earning your vote. If you see me out, please stop and talk. You can come out of the office anytime. We're at 3910 North Ocoee Street. And you can always reach out to us, 423-829-1428. Our website is morganforjudge.com, and we're all over Facebook.
Thank you for joining us for our Mix TV Candidate Spotlight, the spotlight on candidate Andrew Morgan. I'm Steve Hartline. We'll see you next time.
Here at Mix 1041 and Mix TV, we are maximizing our coverage this election season with one-on-one interviews, scheduled discussions, candidate spotlights, web polls, and so much more. We believe it is important that you stay informed to make decisions that matter to you and your family. Don't miss a minute. Visit mymix1041.com. Our election coverage is presented by the Logan Thompson Law Firm.